Okay, time for another Apple Watch video. You may have noticed in some of my recent videos I've been wearing the Apple Watch Ultra 2 more often lately, and that's because I've switched back to wearing it more than my Garmin. So you know me, I'm all about intentionality and having purpose for the technology that I invite into my life. I love good tech just as much as anybody else, but I often have to stop myself and pause and go, okay, what is the point and the purpose of this? It doesn't do any good to buy a shiny new device and a shiny new tool and then start using it and you just get that like, why did I buy this? Buyer's remorse. This is not a device that fits into my lifestyle very well. Case in point, the remarkable Paper Pro Move. That's going back to Best Buy today. But that's what I'm all about is intentionality is why do I have this? What's its purpose? If it does not have a clearly defined purpose, I don't have it. So let's talk about that a little bit. So I love the Garmin. I'm not going to pretend that I don't. It's an awesome, fantastic device that just gives me the bare bones essential utility that I want out of a watch. If I'm going camping or going more rugged hiking into the mountains, or if I just want something that's utilitarian that I just keep with me, not have to worry about it if I'm taking a trip somewhere, the Garmin absolutely is going to be on my wrist. But day to day, just in and out of family life, work balance, I've been wearing the Apple Watch more often and falling in love all over again with its utility that it offers, the way it's meant to be used. And these are some of the things that I've appreciated about it. Diving right in to talk about the battery. This is kind of the main sticking point with a lot of people is that the battery is terrible compared to Garmin. And it is compared to Garmin. It just is. That's why I use the Ultra. This is the Ultra 2, not the Ultra 3, not the brand new one. And it does okay on the battery life compared to the Garmin. My Garmin will go weeks without a charge. I think about it every couple weeks to plug it in. This is a couple days at max. But honestly, it doesn't really bother me that much. Like yesterday, for instance, I charged the watch the night before, I slept with it, I got through the entire day, and I ended the day with still like 75% battery, which is crazy. And I took it off anyway to put it on charge while I could shower up, and the battery like just doesn't really matter day to day when I am by a charger. I am not wearing a watch, no matter what it is, if it's Garmin or otherwise. I'm not wearing a watch for 3, 4, 5, 6 days constantly without taking it off. I don't think that's healthy for the wrist. It's not healthy for the body. And so at some point, I do take the watch off within a 24 to 48 hour period to charge it up. And with how fast this thing charges and tops off, like I don't need it to get to 100%, but it does in the time that I shower up and get cleaned up. It's fine. It's good to go. Like even this morning, I used it for sleep tracking last night, charged it up to 100% around 7 p.m. last night before going to bed, sleep tracked with it. It's now 9:30 a.m. and I'm at 90% battery. So I know this thing will get me through all day, all night, and all day tomorrow if I had to without charging it. But at some point, I will take it off again because I will be needing a break or I'll be taking a shower, whatever it is, and just put it on charge at that point. And so the battery life has really not been an issue for me. I've actually learned to just appreciate that, like, hey, when I reset myself, when I start myself for the day, this thing can charge and then the watch is good to go also. That's something I don't have to do on the Garmin, which is nice on one hand, but also it's a good peace of mind knowing that like, hey, my watch battery is also topped off and ready to go also along with me. And so that's cool. And I know I'm going to get all kind of hate for this stuff in the comments. Like, hey, if you're a Garmin fan, more power to you. Like, I love Garmin too. I'm not disagreeing with you. And me saying these things doesn't take anything away from the Garmin. The Garmin is objectively better in all of these categories. But the Apple Watch is no slouch. That's all I'm trying to say. When it comes to exercising and working out, I have been into running more lately. I found that the GPS actually is a little bit better on the Apple Watch than it is on my Garmin Instinct. I'm sure if you had something like a Phoenix or a Forerunner, there might be discrepancies in the GPS technology. But I did a video on that. You can check it out in the corner up here, depending on where the card is at. And looking at just the raw data tracks of the GPS, the Apple Watch was consistently more aligned with the trail that I was on than the Garmin was. And so I appreciate those little things. It just makes a bit of a difference. But on the flip side, I've also seen and heard that the Apple Watch will account for less steps and less distance than the Garmin does. And so at the end of the day, I don't think it really matters. I think it just comes down to which one's going to give a better accuracy, peace of mind, and which one's easier to use and operate when you actually need to use it. And that being said, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me on using the Apple Watch while exercising. Yes, I have the action button programmed to be able to start a workout, and so I can use my buttons to start, stop, pause a workout just like I could on a Garmin. The Garmin is objectively better in that regard. It just is. It's easier when you're sweaty or when you're exercising and you just want to see the screen and it's bright sunlight. Like the Garmin is just hands down better with the buttons. But this is not that far off, and especially with the double tap gesture, it is nice to be able to scroll through certain items because almost always my hands are full or I don't want to reach over and touch the screen. I can just use my gestures for wrist flicking or double tapping. That has been amazing. And that, in my mind, that almost makes up for the lack of buttons on the Apple Watch. You essentially get these abstract accessibility ways to interact with the watch, which is super cool. For instance, real life scenario last night, I had a client text me that we needed to adjust our meeting for the morning. And so I raise my wrist and I just tell Siri to adjust my meeting for this day and time. She confirms it, done. That is so clutch. I don't have to go find my phone. I don't have to go and remember to do that later. And then I can send a message to the client saying like, we're all good to go right from my wrist. That is amazing. And even just simply, I get a message and I can just double tap to respond, or I can flick my wrist away to dismiss it. Those little things, those little quality of life things where it's like I see something come through and I can just deal with it right then and there. So clutch. That's a concept that has bothered me a little bit over the years, has come to bother me when using Apple Watches or just any smartwatch in general, is that there are multiple touch points when it comes to notifications. Here's what I mean by that. So touch point number one, let's say you get a text message from somebody. It'll buzz your wrist. Oh, I got a text message from somebody. You read it, mentally you log that in your brain and you think, okay, do I do something with this now or do I do something with it later? Oftentimes I'm in the middle of something else or I'm with the kids or it's something that I'm like, okay, I have to file that away to deal with that later. I'm not necessarily ready to deal with that right now. And that's part of the problem with smartwatches is we allow them uninterrupted, obtrusive access to our lives. And so having it on Do Not Disturb or something like that, easy, better to do it that way. And so in other words, like if I get a message that comes in, I see it, okay, noted, I got to get back to that later. And then that increases the mental load of like, okay, I've already responded to that in my head, but then I have to go back to it later and respond to it again. So like that part of it is not nice, but there are moments where I am able and ready to receive and give a response back. And in those moments, though, that is nice. But otherwise, yeah, like with the smartwatch thing, it's like the multiple touch points of like I see a message, mentally log it, and then have to come back to it later to deal with it and do something with it again. So I've seen it twice now. It just doubles the amount of like mental load. And so that's one reason why I don't like smartwatches as much, or will just flat out turn notifications off, is that when I pick up my phone, I'm ready to see what's there and respond to it, as opposed to having this like weight of knowing what's waiting for me on my phone. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent. But that's really kind of what it comes down to, is just the usability and the smart features of it. I've done videos about comparing the smart features between the Apple Watch and the Garmin. I've done so many comparisons between the two. The fact is that they're just very different devices, and that the Apple Watch provides just a few more smarts that I find useful for my day-to-day life, especially when it comes to running a business. Oftentimes I'm working with my hands, I don't have my phone on me, or I have gloves on, and there's something that I'm like, if my phone rings with my wife or she sends me a message, I can't always just pick up my phone easily. And so to have this on my wrist with double tap and voice commands and like being able to take a phone call is amazing. That's something I don't get on the Garmin. And I run into that very quickly if I'm wearing my Garmin and I see my wife needs something. I'm like, oh, I have my gloves on because I'm like messy, I'm dirty, or doing something outside. So I have to like wash my hands to grab my phone or do what I need to do. And so this just reduces that friction, where it does make it extremely easy to stay connected when I want to be. But that being said, like anything else, it's a tool with balance, right? And so like I said earlier, if I'm going on a trip, or if I want to be intentional, if I'm just being with my family and I'm trying not to work, then absolutely I'm going to wear the Garmin with notifications. That's just more of a simplistic tool about allowing me to be present. The Apple Watch, though, really does help me to stay connected and accountable with my business and with my family. And I like that about it a lot. But when it's time to shut down business, shut down work, and just be present, it comes off. And that's all that's about, is just balance, like anything else, right? And to be honest, I've been curious about trying out the Series 11. I tried out the Series 10 for a few days when it came out last year. And I'm curious to give the Series 11 a try with the battery life because this is not my main watch every day, all day, gonna take it camping. Like I say, it's just a little bit of an extra tool device that I use that will help me in communication day to day as I'm working. And so for that reason, a Series 11 with its smaller form factor and just slimmer profile, like I don't care about the battery. I'm just going to put it on a charge every day anyway. That's got intriguing things to me. And so I might be checking that out at some point. But let me know what you think. Do you use an Apple Watch? Do you use a Garmin? How do you use your devices? Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.